4th year in a row, which is super cool. I'm so glad that you guys are here to join us. The Access Consciousness books are like no other books in the world. They create miracles if we use the amazing tools in them. And so today, on today's International Book Day, we have 4 guests and also some of the Access Consciousness publishing authors who have sent in some videos with tools and inspiration and magic. So we're so excited for the day. Access Consciousness Publishing has also created a discount code. So if you guys are inspired by the books or wanting to buy the books, there is a discount code. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on, maybe between guests, but I'm very excited about that. So welcome. Today, our first guest on International Book Day is an amazing woman, Susanna Mittermaier. Let's bring on Susanna. Okay, there she is. Hi,
hello, everyone.
Welcome. So Susanna is a psychologist and she's also an Access Consciousness facilitator, and you're the author of like 5 books, I think, Susanna. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And today we're going to discuss your most recent book, Curing the Gilded Cage, which I've just read and was like totally amazed by. So thank you for being on. And I would just love for you to start by telling us about why you wrote this book and a little bit about it.
Well, I have it here. So this is how it looks.
It's so pretty.
And it has a very pretty cover. So this book was actually inspired by Gary Douglas, who is the founder of Access Consciousness. He has inspired a lot of what I create in the world, and also a lot of my books, where he's like, Susanna, how about you writing a book about this and this? And this was one of the topics that he like pitched to me, or whatever you want to call it. And it immediately felt very light. And what this, like, curing the gilded cage is about, is like, you know, if you look at this world, we use oftentimes what's going on, what we are presented with, as kind of like an orientation, as a reference point of what we think we should or can have, like a very limited buffet. And that buffet of like how you, like, you know, how often do you look at others, how they live their lives, and especially things you see on social media or hear people talk about, like the perfect, like the gilded cage, like the perfect gilded shiny life that you're supposed to have. And you're like, okay, that's what life is. That's, you know, so a lot of like people who are seekers, they use this world as like, you know, like, okay, this is what I orientate or use as a reference point. But all of this, like everything that's presented to us, is about lack and how to overcome it. It's never about the magic that you are and that you're capable of as the being you are, you know?
Yeah.
So how often do you, like you guys listening, allow yourself to be distracted by what you think you should have as your life, rather than like asking yourself, what would I like truly like cultivating the clarity on what is congruent, what's matching you as the unique, infinite being that you are. And that's something most of us have not been taught. And a lot of the Access books and the Access Consciousness tools are there for you to, like, maybe even for the first time, get that sense of clarity of like who you are beyond what your culture, your parents, your family projected on you or needed you to be. And then go, okay, if I use nothing from what I see around here as a reference point, how would I like to create my life? And at, you know, like the curing and going beyond that gilded cage is where like you let go of that, I'm gonna say, invented need of belonging and being like others and like this world and faking satisfaction. It's like, you know, like, you know, a lot of people think they should be satisfied. But us seekers, like, what if that is not something? And what if we don't need to fake satisfaction, but we like just keep on going for that thriving, for that lust of creating and living, and like, rather than this order of perfection, um, embrace the chaos of change. And that's definitely something that's new for a lot of us, because that's not how we grew up. Like, we grew up with a lot of order, like, this is your cage, this is your place, this is your box, just be happy, be satisfied with this. But seldom are we asked or inspired to allow that chaos is movement of change, of like, it's okay that you start with something and then change your mind and change the direction of your life. Like, what if that is something you allow, where you start out with a job, or you start out with some project, and then you go, wait a second, that actually doesn't really make me happy, what else is there? And then you change the direction at every moment. Like, that level of freedom.
Yeah. I love the part of the book where you talk about your relationship. And I didn't know the story behind your relationship, because you totally did it from beyond the gilded cage. And like, you and Jorgen were like, let's just meet up because it's light. And you guys just had fun. And there was like no, oh, well, what does this mean? What's the future going to be? Or am I going to have 6 babies with this man? Just kidding. But I loved that story in the book, because it was just so inspiring about how you guys would get together like once a month, and you guys would enjoy each other. You would have fun together. And then you were like, maybe we'll see each other again, maybe we won't. And just that constant always being in question with the relationship. And it just had this awesome energy to it. It was so cool. And then you're like, after about 9 months of doing that, the energy shifted, and we realized that we wanted to like hang out more and spend more time together. But it was always following the energy, and it wasn't like, my mother and my father did this, and so because they did this, I will do this. Like, that is like,
Well, it started out by like, the resistance of doing what others do with relationship, which wasn't helpful either. That's where it actually started, which is also a gilded cage. Like, you see what other people do, let's say in relationship, and you're like, okay, that's my only choice. Maybe, like, you conclude that, and then you either agree and say, okay, I'm going to do this, or you go, no, I'm going to fight it and go, I'm not going to do this,
Totally.
So that's where I started out with, but that wasn't freedom either. That's like fake going beyond the gilded cage, but it's still like sitting in the cage big time. But then I realized, wait a second, what is true for me? And that was the question that took me out of that cage, that box. And I realized, okay, I don't need someone in my life, but I would like at least someone or someones in my life. So the luxury of adding people to my life. And I was asking, like, before Jürgen showed up, it was the same before my first horse showed up, and of different kinds. So I was black and red, and there was one white in the middle. And then gotta have fun, right? So I was always asking for, I was like having a sense of what is it I would like to add to my life, and it was those energies of nurturing and humor and communion, and a lot of the energies I don't have words for. And so then a horse, like Gary actually asked me, do you want to buy this horse? And I'm like, horse was not on my shopping list this morning, but this totally matches what I've been asking for, so yes. And the same with Jürgen, my partner, that's his name. And the same with him, where I'm like, man, universe was not on my shopping list. Exactly, like, actually not because, of the bad promo you see in this reality about relationship, where I went, not that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I went, wait a second, that being with this yummy body, he has those energies that I've been asking for. So what if I stop ordering my world and actually let that magic that's right now showing up in form of a man in and getting over my points of view? And that was truly a moment of vulnerability, truly a moment of chaos for me, because I was so good at being alone, which is a gift. Being like having the capacity to being alone is definitely a gift, but it also can be a conclusion of like this, like avoiding. But then like that was an order I created, as I said before, like the cage, and then creating the movement, the chaos of actually letting in what you ask for. That's chaos. That's going beyond the cage, like really letting in what you ask for, whether it's a man or a woman or money or business or some change with your body. Like we all know this tool of ask and you shall receive. Well, ask is one part, receive is another part that most people forget, like that is a very vital thing to actually receive. And that's something where with him, I went, okay, so you ask for something greater, well, then let it in. And it was very uncomfortable. And I always say, like, uncomfortableness is definitely the foreplay to greater possibilities. It's like, what if we embrace that uncomfort that takes us beyond that, thing that looks so good, the gilded thing, the shiny, the thing that looks so right in this world.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's so awesome. It is really uncomfortable. Like it's almost like, oh God, you have to really like trust yourself, because it's a different energy when that kind of receiving is coming in. It's not like, oh, I'm getting my paycheck or I'm going to, going for a haircut. It's like this thing that you don't have a reference point for. Other people are not choosing it. And it's not something that how it's going to turn out. And it's like, you let it in, and it is the chaos, as you're saying. And it's like, can I do this? It almost seems like there's just so many possibilities in it, and we're not used to receiving that many possibilities. And then we do, and it's like life and living and your connection with the universe just explodes.
So you said many important things here, like really brilliant. So it's like exactly as you said, you don't know how it turns out. And that's the adventure of living that we've not been taught to embrace, that we could embrace. Like, wait, what if it's not about knowing how it turns out? Am I still here? Yes. Somebody called now. So what if it's not about like knowing how it turns out, or others doing it or not doing it, like really not using anyone as a reference point, whether you can do it or not. And
ooh, that is so cool and so different.
Yeah, like truly. And that's such a, I don't know the word for it, but is it loyalty to us? Is it communion? Whatever it is, but and you said the connection with the universe, as the universe that we be. This is so huge. And oh my goodness, the level of freedom. So like the words we say right now, for those of you listening, what if you listen to, like, receive the energy beyond the words? Because this is so much bigger than that words, just words can convey.
Yeah, absolutely. Poof. Yeah, the receiving. I also love how you wrote in the book that we don't have to hit rock bottom before we choose to live beyond the gilded cage. And I thought that was really cool, because I think we're pretty used to hitting rock bottom before we make a huge change in our lives. And, there's a lot of value of pain and suffering. And I remember, for me, there's this book or this movie called Tick, Tick, Boom. And it's about these starving artists in New York City. And I watched that movie so much. I love that movie. I love the energy of those artists. And then one day I was watching it and I was like, maybe this is part of the reason that I'm poor.
I love it. Great awareness.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, I just love this energy of the starving artist. This is so good.
You know what's cool is that you actually indulged in it,
Yeah.
like not making it wrong. Oh my God, I shouldn't love that energy. But right now, in this 10 seconds, in this moment, I love it. And I am just being with it and being present with it. And I'm allowing it as long as I allow it until I'm done.
Yeah. Oof.
So
Until,
cool.
yeah, totally. So that was just, so when I read that in your book, I was like, that was a really cool tool, because I think it's just like a given that things have to get really bad before we make a change. And in the
Hmm.
book, you're saying, no, you don't have to like things get bad. You don't have to. And then, you're talking about the presumptive realities. And guys, there's so much in this book. I just recommend getting the book and reading it, because there's so many clearing statements in it. And so it's like the book is a whole journey, like it's a whole pathway to, it's almost like it's not a how to, but it's like it's like a little not a little, it's like a, I'm picturing like a path through the forest, and you're giving us all of this information about, here are these presumptive realities, these things that we've presumed, these things that are so close to us and so intrinsic in who we think we are. And then you're giving the clearing statements to actually change them and transform them and actually start to live beyond the energy. So it's this, in this book, it's like, here is a guide to opening not the exact direction you're going to take, but the direction that you as the reader can open the door that you would like to open in order to be who you want to be and create what you would like to create and have your life different. Just like we were talking about Susanna and her partner, it's like they paved a different path. You can do this, and this book is guiding you.
Thank you. That was so well put. Thank you so much. And that is also what I was doing my best to create. And also, like when you talked, it's that comfort of limitation that we have learned to just be satisfied with, or that's it. And it's like, what if we sense that urgency of creating a life that is truly ours, like you creating a life that is truly yours? And like when you start to be congruent with what is true for you, that is like the highway to the creation of your wonderful life. Like that highway is open. And it's not about perfection, it's not about getting it right or perfect or according to someone's ideal. Like rather than going for perfection, go for change. It's way
Yeah,
more fun and
totally.
congruent with us.
Totally. And like, and that's how you started the book too. You were like, I wanted to be perfect. And I totally related to that. I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to get it right. You went through all these steps to get your life right. And then you said at the beginning of the book, but it didn't work. I still felt like I was caged. I felt like I wasn't being myself. And then it's like you started talking about how did you change it, and how did you just
Right.
like live your own life. And I used to, like, when I was kind of before I started Access, I would constantly have this point of view of like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of being alive? What's the point of being here? Like, there is nothing invigorating about this life. There's nothing. And I had been doing a lot of spirituality. I had been doing Buddhism. I had, read a lot of different, texts of the different religions, and was doing different body healing modalities with tapping. And I was still like, I just don't know what I am supposed to do. Nothing's invigorating. And then it's hard to even imagine how invigorating and adventurous life can be beyond the gilded cage. And
I mean,
that's
what you just said there, you say so many amazing things. Like like that, what you just said is like, whose life am I living? That's something I asked myself when I, did different things. And like when you go for a rightness or perfection, who am I doing this for? It's like the perfection is such a boring endeavor.
It
And
is.
it's perfection is life and not living.
It is.
And really, like who, like, when you talked about we tried to be right and perfect, who did we even do that for? Definitely not for us.
No.
But to, like, who did we try to make happy with the perfection and the rightness? And whose life were we living? And as you say, the adventure of now what? Now what? That is so undefined, but wow.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, it's like I was like, is there even a way to like go beyond this idea of like what's the point of anything? But yeah, when you get into that adventure, it's like, oh, like I want to be alive times a godzillion.
With
I want
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, with everything. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because
Mhm.
it is with
Mhm.
every area of your life and you're
Yeah.
just seeking more and it's awesome place to live from.
Well, I have an example. Like when I started out being a psychologist, and first I tried to do it the way I was educated, both
Mhm.
from university and also later from, the practical job. And I was looking at how does one do it? How does one do therapy? How does one do this job? Like as many people do when they start out any kind of job. And I found myself being unhappy after a while, and I didn't make the connection of the first and the second part until I did, when I realized, okay, so me trying to do it the way others do, that takes a lot of my creativity. That costs me a lot of my creativity.
Oof.
And it created that, like you call it depression in this world. Like depression is like, where you suppress your energy, you
Mhm.
suppress who you are, your creativity, your thriving. And I realized that the way I was trying to do things, the way I was trying to do my job was right. Like I was always validated. Oh my God, you're like such a good student. You're such a good, like, psychologist, like from the people that were validating me or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
So it always was looked at, oh my God, you're so good, you're so right. And it was so tempting to stay there because of
Oh,
that.
yeah.
But I was getting to a point where I was like rock bottom, so depressed that I'm like, how can I help depressed people with that? My own depression. It's just right. So something is off, something needs to change. So I made this choice of, okay, I have to. This is so urgent in my world right now to get clear on what is actually true for me. How would I like to do this job if I didn't have a reference point of how others do this profession? How would I like to do it? And that was where I started to leave like the safe path that would
Mm,
have given me more academic and career recognition. I know,
mm,
like I know in this reality, like I would have been like, I don't know, something with whatever title and blah, blah, blah. But that wasn't big enough for me. And that's something that's not just for me, but I'm sure for a lot of people who are different, it's like the biggest recognition that you can get from this reality. It's just not big enough. It's just not fun enough. It's just not, right? So that's where that choice started, of leaving that gilded cage that would have looked so good, where I know my family and other people will go, are you crazy? Are you crazy to do something, like to create your own type of psychology or do something totally different? And it felt like dying in a way. Like some part of me was like, okay, you're crazy, but I just knew the future this would create, and I have to do it. When you just know you have to do it and it doesn't make sense. So the conversations I had with Gary Douglas about what else is possible with, how else can psychology be? How else can you inspire and empower people and create change? And that's where pragmatic psychology started, which is, a new paradigm. And my first books are like about pragmatic psychology. And it was so uncomfortable, but it totally paid off to go beyond this gilded cage that looked so right. And, you know, now seeing how many people benefit from it, and having people who learn this method and teach it and facilitate it and use it around the world themselves, and what that creates in their lives and in the schools they work, in the businesses they work. It's just amazing, you know, like, and it's like, what if it's just like us, like every single one of us making this crazy choice of going beyond the box, of going beyond that gilded cage, just knowing it doesn't make sense. I just know I have to do it in whatever area of your life that is. What future are you and will you create for you and many others?
That is so awesome.
Mm.
And I mean, like, the courage that takes, but then like what that creates in the universe, you know? And it's like, it's so amazing to me how, like, when we have the strength to actually choose something that nobody has ever chosen before, you know, other people actually do it. And it's super weird when you inspire somebody and then they choose something greater. And it's like, I'm like, wait, is that really possible?
Wow. And I would like, you know, I see you, you know, like how many times have you done that? And all of you listening, it's like look at least at one time, just one example where you have done that, where you've made a choice beyond that, you know, rightness, that perfection, that gilded cage, that thing that others go, you have to stay at this job, you have to keep this, you have to do this. And you made a choice that's true for you. What has this created, and what future is this still creating?
Yeah. And when you're making the choice that nobody else is making, you don't know what's going to happen or how it's going to turn out. Like, you're like, yep, it's light. And so I'm going to do it. But it's like, and then you do. And then, like, afterwards, like 6 months later, 1 year later, like, there are choices that I've made that were for greater, that were very bold, like, you know, over 10 years ago. And it's like, I'm living with the awesomeness of the results today, you know? And it's like, that is a really, really fun place to live from.
Yeah, that's where you receive the future you have created.
That's where you receive the future you have created. Wow. Yeah, exactly. Well,
More
that
of
is so
that.
cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, Susanna, and thank you for writing this great book. And I highly recommend it, guys. It's the coolest journey. And you know, there's the clearings and the tools, and like, it's all there to really start choosing and creating your own reality beyond the gilded cage. So thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Julia. You're amazing. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Bye, Susanna. All right. Wow. Oh my gosh. I read that book last week in preparation for our interview, and I was just like so grateful. Like, it just put things into a whole different perspective about how we can choose different and how we can have something different. And then Becky has put Becky from Access Consciousness Publishing has put in the code. When I asked Dain, I sent Dain a voice message, and I said, Dain, I have this sense that there's something that you are aware of with Book Day this year. Could you like tell me, like, give me an energy or a vibe? And he's like, well, what about miracles? And so the theme of this year's Book Day is miracles. So Access Consciousness Publishing is giving everybody a discount of 20% if you buy less than 9 books. And if you buy 10 books or more, it's 50% off. And the code is miracles. So Becky put that. It's at acpublishing.com. Awesome. All right. So guess who's next? Guess who's next? Guess who's next? Guess who's next? Gary's next. Let's bring him on. Hi, Gary.
Hi,
How's it going?
very good. How are you doing?
Oh, better than ever.
Good. Well, it
Better
was
than ever.
very cute watching you guys talk about basically the difference between having a life and living. Because
Yeah.
if you're choosing to create your future and you don't know what it's going to create, but you know you're going to do it, it's living.
Yeah.
The adventure of living. People should have the adventure of living and the adventure of limitless possibility,
Yeah. Oh
different reality.
God. Yeah. I don't even. So I've been on. Oh, you have your book. Awesome. So I've been listening to a lot of Access Me lately,
Yeah.
and I listened to the playlist classes that created the Access books, and that was really fun because basically it was fun to see how things were created. And I've also been listening to a lot of Rasputin, which is super fun. And basically it's like it's like how it's fun to listen to you too, and like how did you have like the courage to do this? Like what inside you
I had no
was the
choice.
no?
I had no
So
choice.
so basically they came to you and were like, we need you to do
Get
this.
to work.
Wow.
You know, it's like, what does that mean? Get to work. Okay. So how do I
Wow.
get to work? And what I realized is getting to work meant I had to choose every 10 seconds. And I had to choose what was going to generate and create more, not less, if I wanted to have consciousness on the earth, which is what I really want. I would like to see more consciousness here. I created the Access Me idea for that purpose. To create more
Oh my
consciousness on
God.
the planet. And nobody wants to buy it. So
I know. It is so weird. Like until you have the Access Me, like I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. But it's like I've been listening to there was this like $4,000 class that I've been wanting to listen to for a long time from 2019 called the Family Class.
Yeah.
And it's like the clearings in the first couple of minutes of the family class like blew me away and helped me deal with some issues with my body that like I just couldn't get to the energy on. But it was like right there at the beginning of the class.
Terrible, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy.
Well,
So,
that's
okay.
the reason I actually did the thing, because what I realized is we have to have more consciousness on this planet, or we're going to become the effect of the political insanity that we live with. You know, I mean, Putin is a dictator, and Ding Power, whatever his name is a dictator, and so many others are dictators, and now Trump wants to be a dictator. But I think he'll become more of a tater dick. But that's my point of view.
Yeah. Totally. And it's like I just went to Romania.
Yeah.
And I've never been to Romania, and I went to Bucharest, and
Mhm.
I took a tour through Ceausescu's house, the communist leader, and that was like cognitive dissonance headquarters. I almost vomited on the sidewalk after I finished the 45-minute tour of his house. And it was like it was the first time that there's the energy of post-communism in Romania is more intense than even like Russia or anywhere else, that I've
Hey,
been.
have you been to Poland?
No.
Poland
That
is like gray. It's like everything is gray, and they're so not willing to have happiness. I mean, there were some people who went to Poland, and they went to a ice cream store, and they were
Yeah.
asked to leave because they were laughing too much.
Yeah. So it's like it's our choices that allow these things to occur or not occur. Like it's what we choose. So can you talk about some of the choices that we can make to create a future where things are working, where we're not ruled by dictators, where there's more consciousness that's taking over?
Well, it's like it's got to be that place where more people know that they can choose it. And right now, people don't know they can choose it. They think they have to choose from the list of, it's like going to a restaurant where you have a limited menu and you don't get to choose anything more than two things. It's like most
Right.
people would like to choose more than two.
Right.
It's like how many husbands could you choose to have if you were allowed to be polyamorous?
Gary, you've been getting me on this one a lot lately.
I know. I mean,
I love it though. It like when you say it, it like goes into my universe and or like through my body and into the universe in this amazing way. But it's like,
yeah,
yeah,
because I'm always looking for what's going to change things for everybody. How can I change this? And it's like, I mean, I was talking with Brett earlier and he was on his comedy thing and they had these people that Brett was one of the actors in the scene who was supposedly, a
receiving a statue.
a statue, and
Brett playing a statue.
yeah, basically
Okay.
he was being a statue. And so it's like they said, they wanted to know what had been added to him because somebody else had been, what had been added to them were a pair of binoculars because they were bird watchers. And so, they asked what was added to him and he wouldn't tell. And the instructor said, "What is it you're resisting saying?" He said, "That they added a strap on to me."
Stop. Fred.
And he finally said it, and everybody fucking cracked up. You see, that's funny. But it's inappropriate to be that bold.
Wow. So when you're talking about me having a lot of husbands, you're emboldening me.
Yes.
Oh, I like that. I
I mean,
like
if
that.
you just started looking at, okay, so how many husbands would I like to have, and would that make my life easier or better or what? It's like indulging in things is how you get to the clarity about what you'd really like to choose. Like Dain had this woman that he was in must with, not lust, must. I must have this girl. I must have this girl. I must have this girl. And she was married, and she was, she was very pretty and very nice, and she had a very sweet daughter who, was in must with Dain as well as she was, and she was 12, and I went, okay, so what's this gonna be like in the future? First of all, the man loved Dain as much as the woman did, so he would have been wanting to come and visit Dain. I said, so you'll have the wife, you'll have the husband, you'll have the son, and you'll have the daughter. And is that where you want to live your life? Say what? The answer, of course, ended up being no, but it took 3 days for him to get to the point where he got out of must and into what's really going to turn into the dust that you're going to have to suck up. And it's like, and that's the thing we got to get to, that place where we're willing to look at what's really going to get created by the choices we make.
Well, I really liked what you said at the beginning about me asking about how can we actually have more consciousness and less dictators and have more choice. And
I would like everybody to start calling them tater dicks because that's funnier.
okay, so tater dicks. And it's like, it's this space where basically each of us has to know that the energy that we're being, that the questions that we're asking is what's going to determine that.
Yeah, it's going to be chosen by our questions. What question can you be that could change this?
Yeah. Whew. Okay.
Very different.
So it's totally different. And it's really empowering. And Okay, so today I wanted to talk about your book, The Place, which is
Yeah.
just a beautiful, beautiful, magical. It's not a story. It's like a possibility that we could have, and it's like
Story?
it's a story, yeah, that I would like to come true.
Me too. But I think it does and is in more ways than we know. You know, el lugar, our resort, means the place. And el lugar is like the place. It's a place that nurtures you, that makes everything easier on you. Your body is nurtured by it. Your soul is nurtured by the critters. The wonderful noise, including the howler monkeys, are just a gift.
Yeah. And when I'm there, I like
Sorry.
no, it's good. When I'm there, like I can't
Yeah.
even have a thought. I can't even have a problem. Like they just can't exist for me. And I leave so
Not they
transformed.
can't. They can't. They don't.
Hmm.
They don't exist because it's like you realize that you are like the land, an acoustical wavelength of possibilities that has never had to choose to be the acoustical wavelength of possibilities you actually are.
Hmm. Wow.
So much more fun to judge, right?
Oh my God. It's like, ouch, when you
Yeah.
say that. It's
Yeah.
so not easy.
No. And it's like, and that's the thing that I think is great about it is that the castle, all of them are designed to get you to that place where it's not easy for you to judge.
Yeah. That
And
is
the
so
majority of the world likes to judge. They think that makes it real.
Yep. Hmm. When I went into the restaurant at El Lugar,
Mm-hmm.
which is under construction right now, it's such a it almost took me to like it transported me to a different reality and a different time.
Yeah,
And
because I designed the whole place so that it would bleed time, bleed possibilities, bleed different realities. So no two people would have the same experience going there.
can you say more about that part? I never thought about that part.
Well, for me, it's like, how come I always have different experiences than most people do?
How come you do? Because you're functioning in a different world with all of the
Yes,
universe.
yes. And I want to function with the universe for possibility, not in the normal reality that makes other people think they got it right. See, I'm
I
not
just
trying to get it right. I'm just trying to see what else can be created.
I just love where you live. I've felt into a portion of where the space that you live from, and it's just the most amazing gift. And
It's so much easier. It's like in the place, in the book, it's like the one thing is, it's like, Jake calls his ex-wife and she says, I took all your money to keep it safe for your kid. How is that keeping it safe for your kid by you taking all the money? And how the fuck did you talk them into it? The bank. But
Mhm.
banks can be talked into anything if it has to do with a wife, but not if it has to do with a husband.
Interesting.
Weird.
That is
Yeah.
weird. But then
That might be-
Jake created a place where he didn't let that stop him. He created what he needed to create. He created $200,000 worth of gold to
Need and tug, need and tug, need and tug. And if people really functioned as need and tug, everything would be easier. I don't need that anymore. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris Hughes, I'm going to be talking to Simone after I talked to Dain today. And I was reading the part of getting out of debt joyfully. And there's an interview at the back of the book with Chris. And Chris talks about how much his financial reality changed in a 4-year period. Like
Yeah.
he literally went from his car breaking down on the road and he just abandoned his car because it was such a wreck, to him having like $150,000 of just silver in his house, and just an energy of wealth and riches. But you know what? You told Chris to really, really study the need and tug material.
Yes, I did. Because if you function from need and tug, you can pull anything you need into your life.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like you've got to be willing to recognize what you desire and be willing to pull that into your life. You know, I would like the app to go worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get it up to about 4,000 people, and then I'll be able to advertise it on national television.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll go worldwide.
Wow. That app is just the craziest thing, but you can't, I was thinking the other day, like, how do we make it greater? How do we, because once you get it, it's a no-brainer. You're like, oh, this costs this much, and I can feel the energy of how much money it's making me to have the app, like coming into me. And it's so much more, like, it's getting the app is a revenue stream. Like if you want to make more money and you need a new revenue stream, getting the app is that.
Well, I mean,
But
it's like the thing is, if you look at the app as costs $4,000, okay, so cut out one access class per year that you'd pay $4,000 for, and you've got it paid for. Everyone says, I can't afford it. I said, and my point of view is you can't afford not to have it, because it is everything you need to know that will make any part of your life work if you hear it.
yeah, totally. Absolutely. And I really, listening to Rasputin is really interesting because he's very direct.
Yes, he is.
And the
Almost
direct,
as direct as I am.
you are, you create a riddle of possibilities, and it works better, or it
I
works.
am the Riddler. He's
Yeah.
Batman. And Dain is Badman.
Dain is fun man.
Yes.
He's bad and he's fun.
Yes.
But like, just like the directness with which he speaks is hitting me in a really different way. And there's a lot of things that, I'm listening to, and it's like, the classes that you're doing currently create a particular energy, and the classes from a long time ago create a different energy.
Yeah.
And like both are really different nutrients.
And they are nutrients because they will nurture your body and make your life grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's better than food, I think, but that's my point of view.
It's my point of view too. So in the book, The Place, okay, there's a lot in that book. There's the beginning scenes where one of the things, okay, so at the beginning of the book, Mrs. Mac is guiding everyone. So if you guys haven't read the book, Mrs. Mac is this very aware lady. And
Indian. She's an American Indian. She's a Native American.
right.
And she's married to a Scotsman.
Right.
Who probably has a fuzzy butt.
Anthony's laughing.
All Scotsmen have fuzzy butts.
Anthony's laughing. He liked fuzzy butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the things that happens is she's trying to invite people. She was trying to take them through I forget how it happened, but take them through the river this one way. But because nobody wanted to listen to her, their baby died.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I got from that is that there are people who are willing to guide us.
You fight for what you think is right, you will lose what you want the most.
Wow, that's really intense.
Yes, very intense. And that's what I wanted it to be, that intense. And of course, people were horrified that you let the baby die. I didn't let the baby die. They killed the baby by being right instead of being in choice.
Wow.
You have to have that place where you're willing to choose, even though it makes no sense to you. Do that. I mean, Mrs. Mack took them different ways, and they always ended up with food, and they always ended up with everything working. But because they didn't like what she was asking, they wouldn't do it. I feel like Mrs. Mack a lot. I try to take people the way things will go easier, and they go, no, I don't want that. I want to go this way because this will be better. What's going to make it better? Because I have judged it so. And judgment never creates, it only destroys.
Wow. We're going into like a really weird energetic territory right now, but I kind of like it.
Really? I didn't notice. Hardly at all.
It's really intense, and it's
Well,
like,
the thing is that this book, it's simple, it's easy reading, it doesn't seem that, that impactful. And yet it has so much in it that can impact you in a dynamic way if you listen.
yeah, yeah. And I'm sorry for going here, but this is just where my awareness is
Okay.
skipping
Yeah.
to relationship, because
Yes.
I like relationship. Sorry, I'm not trying to defer away from the intensity, or maybe I am, I don't know. But like the sweetness and the kindness
Yeah.
of the relationship between Ruth and Jake
Yeah.
is so, it's not even a relationship as I would
It's a
define it.
creationship.
Okay. It's a
Yeah,
creation.
because they are looking to create something greater. And it's not a thing that's between them or separates them from. It includes everybody. And everybody knows they're having sex. And everybody's joining in while they're having sex. And everybody's part and parcel of what their sex is. And nobody has a judgment. What if you had sex that way?
Phew, letting it in, letting it in.
Yeah, it's called receiving.
Yeah. No, I'm letting in what you're saying energetically. It's really intense.
Yes, I know, but sex is a receiving. It's not a giving. What do you
Okay.
receive in sex that you're not receiving?
So you have taught me so much about sex for really quite a long time now, and I'm so grateful for everything that you teach and access to everybody about
Yeah.
it, and specifically how I've taken it and ran with it. And one of the things that you're inviting me to lately is to give more in sex.
Yeah. To be
But
the gift of you.
so by
See,
me
you've been
give
taught that as a woman, you're supposed to just take it.
exactly.
Lay there and fuck to old glory. Put a flag on your head and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
No. That's not the real way of sex. Sex is
Yeah.
about what do you receive? What do I receive from this person? If there's no barriers between you and your husband, is the sex better?
Way better.
Okay. So if you didn't try to put up the barriers to this sexual energy, what could be accomplished if you were going, okay, what else is possible here? What else is possible here? What else is possible here?
Wow.
Different reality.
That is really cool because yeah, so I've been dedicating myself to trying something different and gifting rather than laying there and taking it, basically. And it's created this place where as I'm gifting more, Anthony's receiving more, and as Anthony's receiving more, I'm receiving more, and I feel kind
And
of
be
like
careful, because you don't want to receive more money too. So don't let yourself have that. Make sure you exclude that.
Good point. I like that. That's a great added benefit. But it's like I don't know how else to say it, but like I feel like a grown up in sex, and I kind of like that. It's like it's a
Well,
different.
it's better than being a Cinderella,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
as Cinderella, you can only have sex with birds and mice. You know, and your husband is more a rat than a mouse, period. But he's also not a vulture and not a a carrion eater.
I know. I guess if I was that dedicated to being Cinderella, I wouldn't have married Anthony in the long run, because you can't be unaware and marry Anthony. You have to be aware.
Yes, you can't be married to Anthony and not be aware, because he will come up with the strangest points of view and think that they are right beyond his wildest dreams.
And you have to be like, okay, let's be aware. Or at least I'm like, okay, what question can I be?
Yes, which is a much better place to live. You know, and it's like, and I love the fact that the clothes would just disappear off people. You know, Bruce could make in the place. Bruce could make his clothes disappear and hers.
I never caught that when I read the book. I didn't catch that. That's not like in my universe. That's yeah. I think I'll reread.
I think you need to reread, because I think you didn't read it.
Oh, wow. That's really, really. So what is that?
It's
Like her
do
being able
you
to.
need clothes?
Right.
No, you just need a strap on.
Brett.
Yeah. Brett was helping me get ready, and he said, "Is there anything else I can do for you?" Yeah, you can adjust my package so it's on the right side. And he sort of what? I said, "It's a joke."
Oh God.
But wouldn't it be great if we could have that kind of freedom in everything?
Wow. I feel like this is the weirdest conversation we've ever had.
It's not the weirdest, but it's pretty weird. You know, I'm trying to give people another perspective about the place, because they all have it as a love fucking story. And I don't consider it a love story at all. But everybody that I've asked to write a script about it, they always want to put it into the love story. The
So what
important
is
thing
it?
is the love story.
How would you like?
It's the story of capacities untapped. Because the boys can hear people thinking. The boys can move through space. They can move things through space. You know, Uncle Jed can find that which nobody else can find. It's like, you know, and can heal. And it's like, these are all capacities we all should have that most of us won't let ourselves have.
Wow. How did you
Interesting,
let
eh?
yourself? How did you let yourself have it? Like I know you were like told like, okay, we need you to do this, but like, how did you allow
Well,
yourself?
it's like, see, the thing is that several things have happened to me during my life. At one time, I was with a friend and we were on some drug, and we were sitting on the edge of this cliff that was at this kind of an angle.
Okay.
Let's see, that kind of an angle, and we were sitting up here, and it was 300 feet down to the bottom of the canyon. And my friend thought it was cute. So he just started to lean out. And I was about 150 feet away from him, and I just went, no. And he said, wow, that was a strong blast of wind, and that just knocked me down. It wasn't the wind that knocked him down. It was me. And I realized, okay, what other capacities do I have that I've never considered? You know, and I would ask for things like, I could use some money. What would it take for money to show up? And I'd get out of the car and there would be a $900 gold necklace lying on the ground. Okay, good. All kinds of things can happen. I could find water when other people couldn't.
That's really cool.
You know,
As you're saying
those sticks that they use, the dowsing sticks, they always worked for me. They didn't work for other people I knew. Why'd they work for me? Because they did. I would ask for the weather to change, and it would. How did I do that? It's not how. It's, okay, I did this. Now what? What else is possible?
You're making me realize that that's part of why I came to Access and came to dedicate myself to discovering myself, is like, because I had those capacities as a kid since I was born, and I knew all kinds of things. I remember one time there was this, I had a dream about a girl that, you know, we were a class of, I grew up in a town of 700 people, and there were 20 kids in my grade from when we were 3 years old to when we were 18 years old. So there wasn't a lot of people to, you know, be friends with. And so I was like, I would like a new friend. And I remember being like, I had a dream about a girl named Stacy, and then I was like, oh, Stacy's coming to my school. And so for like a month I would talk to Stacy, and she was, you know, I was aware she was coming. And then, you know, a month later the teacher was like, we have a new girl named Stacy. And it was like, oh, good, my friend. And we were great friends. And it's like, that to me, discovering those things about myself was just more important to me than anything.
Yes, and the thing is, it's more important to most people, and most people have those kinds of experiences, but they don't know how to categorize them, and they don't know how to judge them. And they think if they judge right, they'll get it again. No, you don't have to judge it. You just have to go, okay, what else is possible? Be in question about it. And that what else is possible is a really important aspect. And it's like Jacob didn't question his wife. His wife didn't question him. His wife judged him and then took all his money. And he was upset until he was shown that there's another way to get money. What other ways are there to gain money, to gain fame, to gain fortune that you haven't yet chosen or seen? And that's also what I'm trying to show in the book.
Wow. Thank you. Dain is here, so let's
Time
finish
for
up.
me to go?
Yeah, but I thank you for talking with me about all this
No
stuff,
problem.
because this stuff
Anytime,
is
darling.
weird, and I just love it.
Yes, because you're weird. And it's
Yep.
okay to be weird. Okay?
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much, Gary.
Thank you. Take care, my darling. Bye-bye.
All right. Mwah. Bye. Wow. Whew, that was very intense. Whew, how does it get better? And I'm so excited because Dain's here. Dain, can you come on? Could somebody put Dain on? Oh, you're on mute.
So many things to say. I'm here.
Dain, oh, thank you
Hi.
for coming on.
Thank you. I got the purple memo without even knowing it. That's how awesome this stuff is.
Can you just tell us a little bit about what's behind you with your dragon eggs?
Oh,
I
my
didn't see it.
dragons and unicorns. Yeah, I got a 3D printer, and one of the first things I printed was a dragon, and I brought it out, and Estella, who's our house manager, is like, you need to sell those. People need these. They're magical. And I was like, huh, okay, let's see. And people have been loving them. And here's one of my faves who I still haven't named yet. She
Oh my
hasn't
God,
told me
it's
her
so
name.
big. I love
I
the cover.
know, right? It's like,
Oh.
oh. So yeah, and people, it's a very interesting thing. You know, you were saying it's so weird, and I love it. And it is so weird because people will tell me literally magical stories of their dragons that have, you know, I woke up in a bad mood. I looked at my dragon and it went away. I'm like, I know, magic.
That's cool. Wow. Well, thank you for coming on. It's book day. It's International Book Day, and you've written like a billion amazing books.
Happy book day.
Yeah.
Yay.
And the reason we have this day is to talk about what's inside of some of these books and how transformational they can be. And today's theme, I voice messaged you and I said, Dain, can you give me some energy about book day? And you're like, miracles.
Yeah.
And I really love that. So that's our theme today and sort of the thread that we've been weaving through our conversation so far. And today I would love to talk to you about actually the embodiment book.
A book of miracles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. And I just reread it because I knew we were going to be talking about it.
Did you know that was my first book?
No. Yeah, it was actually.
Yeah.
You're a good writer. You were good from the start. It's amazing.
Thank you. And it's so interesting that all the stuff in there is more applicable today than it seemed to be even when I wrote the book. And the funny part was we were getting it typeset and all that sort of stuff. And it was a whole different world back then where we were doing it all ourselves. And so the first box of books arrives and I'm with Gary and Simone and I open it up. I'm so excited. And I see the cover and it's beautiful. And I turn to the back and there's a picture of me naked with a palm frond. Wait.
Let's show everyone.
That. And I was like, okay, so other people have a headshot. I have a, would you like to give me headshot? I was like, okay, this is gonna, and it just, I was terrified and excited and made me laugh my ass off. And I'm like, that's what I want to contribute to people, you know? Stop taking yourself so seriously. Let's enjoy our bodies. Let's go.
Oh my God. In this book, you talk about masturbating like 3 times a day.
Uh-huh.
I absolutely love that part of the book. And it's so inspiring. And like, you are like the walking, talking embodiment of be bad. It's way more fun than being good. And I love that. It's like so inspiring.
Well, that is wonderful. Thank you. And I have to tell you, it's been an interesting thing because like so many people, it's interesting to write a book about getting people over their judgments that they've accumulated over the years, right? And then over a period of several years, I accumulated a lot of judgments of my sexualness, of my ease with my body, of all these things that I didn't even realize I was accumulating. And recently I'm like, wow, it's almost like I read my own book because I'm like, I'm not doing that shit anymore. I'm not going to judge me and my body anymore and judge what my body would actually like and judge that it eats not what people think it should. And you know, it's so amazing what our bodies are capable of when we get out of judgment. And also when we're willing to have, like when you just mentioned masturbating 3 times a day, can you imagine somebody putting that in a book?
That guy.
That guy, exactly, that guy. And it's like, and it's an invitation to be so dynamically different. And that's when we thrive, you know, like look at the energy after, you know, you've been on today and with Gary and talking about miracles. And it's like, that's us. That's what it's all about. And we do so much with judgment, and every judgment kills our miracles. And we've learned to judge, be a good person, not a bad person, because we think we're somehow bad people. And everything you're judging is bad about you and bad about the way you interact with your body is something where there's a greatness in you. And this reality judges everything that's different. Oh, great. So we can be normal like those people? Are you freaking kidding me? I could never be normal. And every time I've tried, I've gotten so unhappy. My body feels less alive. I have less sense of sexualness and the gratitude for my body.
God, it's like, Oh, bodies
Normal.
is Dane's like regurgitating and having a hairball in case
Yeah,
you
right. Exactly.
exactly. That's his point of view about being normal.
Exactly.
Oh God.
And I've
It's
been
like
trying it on for the past while without realizing it. And oh my God, that there's one of my favorite sounds in the entire universe is the popping sound your head makes when it comes out of your butt. And you can actually start seeing through your eyes again. Oh my God. And you, once again, mentioning masturbating 3 times. Once again, who talks about that on an interview and who writes it in a book, you know? But what, to the best of my ability in writing that book, I had had growing up normal. I'd had going through chiropractic school and learning all the do's and don'ts, which are basically just huge amounts of judgment. And and then I met Gary Douglas. And Gary's like, why are you doing all this stuff? You're judging you. And I was like, oh, why am I? Why am I? Is that making my life happier? No. Is it making anybody else's? No. Fuck that shit. And so I started having this miraculous existence. And even, and I've had relationships where, hey, be miraculous, but not more miraculous than me and more miraculous than I want you to be. And don't be more miraculous than if you step over a certain line of miraculous and happy, that means that I don't any longer have the same connection to you. So you need to stay back here. Be as miraculous as you want, as long as you don't go past the line, because I have a little shock collar on your neck. And if you cross over the line, I'm going to shock that fucker. And then you're going to have a problem to deal with called me. And you love me, don't you? You don't want to hurt me, do you? So stop being so happy without me. Stop being so happy where I'm not the source, asshole. Wow.
We need to do something called energetic tasers relationship.
Totally. Let us teach you how to shock collar them when they don't do what you want. But that's what most people do. And we find ourselves doing it. It's like, dude. Yeah. And that's why our bodies. What?
I do it all the time and I know I'm doing it and I'm still like, okay, stop, hold on, do something different, do a clearing statement. What else is possible? And I'm like,
but the thing you're not willing to have is the power you would have if you didn't do it.
Oh, thank you.
And this is what I see with our bodies also. We're not willing to have the power that we would have if it were easy to change them, if we adored them and didn't judge them, and if we were more irreverent with them and interacted with them and saw them as the source of joy they actually are. Because who on this friggin' planet is talking about your body as a source of joy? Nobody.
No.
We are.
We are. Everybody else is talking about it as like the commercials on TV. Like if you have Crohn's disease, if you have depression, if you have diarrhea out of your ears, it's like you need to take this drug. I mean, that's like the sum total of where people
totally. An alternative, health, quote unquote, is very little about connecting with your body and seeing how you being with your body in a different way can change it. But all of the problems with our body are based on our points of view and our ways that we bend or not bend with our body. Every single problem we have with our body is based on how we are being or not being with our body. Well, talk about groundbreaking. It's funny because I wrote the book back in, 20 years ago or something.
Yeah,
when was that?
I'll look it up.
That was a while ago.
It says 2011 was the first edition.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Probably wrote it maybe before that though.
Interesting. Anyway, so in writing it so long ago, it's like it's you realize how far the world hasn't come, but that conversations like this are actually valued to people. So, okay, cool. We are creating the change, which is why we write the books. A lot of people are like, I'm going to write a book and become a billionaire. I'm like, that's funny. Unless you're J.K. Rowling, that may not happen for you. But we wrote them to get information into people's hands that, because we could have a conversation in class, but we'd talk about it for a bit. And then there's other subjects that come up. And sometimes what you need is a deep dive on a particular subject that you can have with you and go over it again and again until it becomes yours.
Yeah. Yeah. I also love that about your book, Body Whispering. That's the book that you and I talked about last year. And that book is just, I don't know. Whenever I have something weird going on, I just turn on the audiobook of that and listen to it. And it just always speaks to what I need. But it's like with that book, it's like, I don't know, there's just a softness and a caring. And I think that book is really like an energetic guide to just having caring for your body and connecting with it, because we really, I mean, most people really, really, really hate their bodies, like really hate them. Like it's animosity.
Yeah. And, and we've been sold the idea that our body is responsible for all of our problems and limitations. No, it's not. You are. And you're blaming your poor body. In fact, you're responsible for every limitation you have placed on it. Because it is just like, hello, I will do whatever you want. Oh, you have judgment that these are too big and these are too small. Well, guess what? Your judgment creates. And but also so does your expansive point of view, where you don't get drawn down into judgment. And like you're saying about body whispering, it's like there is such a kindness there. Embodiment, there's more of the invitation to the irreverence of being different in your life and in your body. And body whispering was a thing to get people to start connecting with their bodies with this kindness that you're talking about, that so many people are missing. And, and they both have they're same, but different, totally different perspectives for the same target, which is actually the greatness of embodiment. These bodies are a greatness. Otherwise, we as infinite beings would never have created them. And here we are. Or if you want to go, oh, God would never have created it. Okay, fine. Whatever works for you. I don't care. Somebody created these damn things. We wouldn't have done it on a fluke. We wouldn't have done it if it were a wrongness.
Totally. Yeah. With body whispering, it's like the energy. I think that a person needs to read that book a lot of times, because every time it's like taking a class and it's just like undoing the wrongness, the hatred, the suffering that we put on our bodies. It flies right in the face of that. And I think that there's you kind of need to take yourself on a long journey with it to keep undoing that and start to get the caring and the joy as more relevant and more present in your world than the hatred and the wrongness and the pain.
Yeah. And I absolutely. And because it's so different than the way we learned things should be, and so different how we change things. And, one of the things about both of these books is just by reading them, you change. It's one of those things, there were certain books that I read before coming to Access that were such a help because there was such a thread of truth in them that I was always lighter as I was reading, and I got lighter after, and it opened my world to receive more of possibilities. And that's what these books are about, is you don't have to even try to do any of the stuff like figure it out, whatever, just read it and let the energy sink in, let the space of no judgment sink in. And each time you read it, it'll be a different book because you're a different person, because the book contributed to you changing to more of who you already were.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's also, I don't mean to bring in a third book. I'm not trying to like discuss all the books, but that's also like what Being You, Changing the World is, your second book that you wrote. And I love this book too. Like when I first got it, it was the first thing that I did in Access. I didn't know anything else. I hadn't done a bars class. I hadn't done anything. I just saw videos online of you working on people doing ESB sessions and making them flop around. And my sister and I were like obsessed with you and your work. And my sister like sent you an email, and I think Katerina got back to her, and she's like, "Oh my God, Dain Heer sent an email back," and then we got this book. We each ordered our own copy because we knew we would like punch each other out if we had to like share it. And we both like, sat there reading it at the same time on the day that it arrived in the mail. And it was just so exciting because like we just connected with you in such a way because you were talking about tools to work with the universe. And I had done so many things that were about, the ideas of the universe, like there is a universe and that universe is this. And I was into The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, that book. And they were like, say, if you want something, you just say it. So I would be like bopping around like magic, 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 magic. And I was like, and then Being You showed up, and then you took it a billion steps further with tools of how to make it happen. And that was not something I had found anywhere else. And I had been searching really, really super hard for that. So when it came, I was like, whew, like so relieved and so grateful. But Being You Changing the World is this amazing guide to learning really kind of everything about access. I mean, there's not much in the book that you don't cover.
Yeah, and yourself, and I'm so grateful because that's why I wrote it, and so to have somebody, even all these years later, go, hey, this tapped me into having the tools and the ability to actually access the magic I am. And It also is one of those things. It's just, that book is such a beautiful journey, and it's got these little interludes, 1 or 2 page things where you read it and you just kind of go, oh shit. Yeah. Or you cry from the beauty of the way the world actually is and the universe is that nobody else is talking about or hasn't been acknowledged. And this is so there's the tools are vital for when you believe you don't have choice. Yeah. And the inspiration, the energetics of all of the conversations are about acknowledging that you do have choice, and an invitation meeting you wherever you are to what's actually possible now for you. And then we have tools to open up those doors and allow you to get there.
Yeah. And it's like, it's really different conversations. Like you talk in the Being You book about how you had this friend and I think she stood you up or late. Yeah, she stood you up, and we've all been there. I've been stood up, and it's like you had a choice. And you, in the book, you talk about this crazy other choice that you made that's so beautiful. That was to get vulnerable. And instead of, because anybody else, in that situation, we're taught to separate from our friend or yell at our friend or, there's like a couple of choices and you get these choices. In that book, you're like, the whole book is you giving these different choices. And I'm like, wait, you could make that choice. And so what you did was, instead of getting mad at your friend, you actually got vulnerable and called her and was like, I really care about you. And like, this was hard for me that it made me have this point of view that you didn't care about me. And that's just world changing to have that different point of view of, I don't have to go from these choices of separating and wrongness and hatred. I can go to vulnerability and I can be really present with like the energy that this brought up for me. And that changes the whole world.
And the quality of our lives also, and that like, it's interesting because the in making that choice, what I actually got was more of me, more of what's actually true for me. And we keep thinking that we can think ourselves into having a sense of us or functioning as us. But in actuality, we have to choose something different to get to be something different. And in putting that in the book, you know, and putting it out there where, hey, this occurred, I got upset and I had a choice. Like, am I going to stay upset with somebody I really care about? Which is where a lot of people live, you know, and what's so also interesting and simple is that's what destroys the quality of our lives, is these places where we're defending our point of view and having to be right and make somebody else wrong. And that's what we learned from people who were not very emotionally mature or conscious, called our parents, because they didn't really have any tools and nobody really taught them a different way of being for most of us. But here it is. Here's where I can take you by the hand and walk you through a bunch of things in all kinds of different ways to access more of what is true for you, because that's when living becomes a beautiful, beautiful creation rather than this sort of experience of walking on broken glass most people have in so much of their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. When I'm not being me in a particular area, or I won't get to the root or get vulnerable about something, it's like you have to defend that area, and then defending that area makes you have to defend all these other areas. And then you're like walking on broken glass. You're like tiptoeing around everything, rather than what, you know, the other choice, which is what basically the whole book is about, is like being present with it and getting vulnerable and looking at, you know, what you're choosing that might be ugly or where you're hurting yourself, you know, and it's.
Yeah. Well, that, when you just said the thing of where you're hurting yourself, we do that so often in the I want to say the the pretense of being right and making ourselves right, you know, because we live in a world in which our being has been assailed from day one, you know, assaulted basically.
Yep.
And so we've been taught, and this is the other thing about the books, is it's unteaching what you've learned that limits you by rekindling your awareness of what is really true for you, the choices you actually have that you'd actually like to make. And there starts to become this kindness toward you and this gratitude for you. And the interesting part is that's where the joy in living comes in. But that's also where having ease in relationships comes in, and having ease with money comes in, and having ease navigating a world that looks more insane every day. And you realize you can not only dance to the beat of your own drummer, but be the drummer that beats out the beat that you and everybody else can dance to.
So awesome. That is so cool. I don't know. Access can be intimidating because it takes so much courage. But if you're willing to have the courage, it can just.
Does it really?
Well, tell me.
Did you have courage when you started and read the Being You book?
Did I already have courage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a trick question.
Okay. Yeah.
You already did. But in doing it, was it like, okay, I'm going to strap in. I'm going to put on the armor. I'm ready. I can do this. It's going to be really challenging. Let me go.
No.
Or did you just pick up a book that you were excited about and start reading?
Yeah.
It's only you after the fact that goes. And here's the thing I want to point out is you after the fact can acknowledge, wow, that took a lot of courage. How much courage has it taken to make some of the choices you make?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot. So, but you acknowledge that after the fact. In the moment, it might look challenging to choose, But every choice you choose like that you know to choose creates a level of personal power that is unheard of.
Wow.
And then
level
later
of
on, you're like, access takes a lot of courage. And no, it doesn't. I mean, it does. But
Yeah.
if you finding you, no matter what the venue, takes a lot of fucking courage. And the courage to be willing to be judged, the willingness to be different, the willingness to lose people, the willingness to gain people, the willingness to gain everything you say you desire that you've been keeping out of your life so you can maintain you as normal. So yeah, there is courage, but it doesn't feel like it at the time. It's just you navigating your life. And so rather than think, oh, gee, I'm not going to do that because I don't have the courage. Did you think you had the courage?
You know, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
I just chose. You're right.
Exactly. And most people don't. But there are a lot of people, if I say, hey, are you courageous? They'd be like, no, I would never fight a lion. I'm like, neither would I. I'm not stupid. Doesn't mean I don't have courage. I'm willing to look at stuff because I would like to enjoy being alive. And I'd like to be the contribution I can be. And I'd like to do the things that make me happy. And I'd like to masturbate 3 times and get that energy forward to that energy again. You know?
Yeah. No, that's cool. And it's like when we choose something different and like the whole energetic space of our lives starts to move. It's like that's the part, I mean, it can be uncomfortable and getting through that. But it's like, you're right. Like I never really thought about what I was doing. I was just like, this is fun. This is what I want to do.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
And that is part of the difference of you. And that is part of the difference of all of you watching and listening. That's us. And if anything, all of these books, in fact, all of Access, invite you to be that, the you actually are.
Wow.
And I know Gary mentioned Access Me. I got to mention it again because I realized I was looking from the place of people who've done Access and the benefit they would get from it. But I realized so much, it's all the people who have never done Access who can engage with this universe of material and change and transform. And a lot of people are not somebody who's going to come to a class, but these people can be contributed. They can have miracles contributed to them. So I just wanted to put that out there for anybody who's heard about it, thinking about it. Check it out. See what miracles await you.
It's like insane what's on there. And you can go back and I like whatever you're looking to like change, you just can go on there and be like, okay, show me. And then click on that. And it speaks to exactly what you require in that moment, which is crazy. It's amazing.
It's like that really fun game a lot of us have done at some point where it's like, I have a problem, I need some help. And you open you just open a book to a page. You're like, holy shit, it's right there again. Exactly what I needed. It's like that, but on a bigger level, you know? Yep. So yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Whew. Thank you, Dain.
My pleasure, my darling.
Wow. How does it get better? And so this is the embodiment book that we talked about. And Body Whispering is somewhere in the stack. I can't find it. And Being You, Changing the World. So amazing, beautiful books that are about creating a different reality. So thanks for writing them and just being, like I said at the beginning, being somebody who's willing to just create and do things that nobody else would, and then inspiring everybody else to create that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome.
Arigato.
Arigato gozaimasu.
Oitashimashite.
Awesome. Thank you, Dain. Bye. Wow. Oh, how does it get better than that? Oh, God. I just wanted to say too, like, if you guys would like to get some of these books or explore some of these books, Access Consciousness Publishing, if you go to acpublishing.com, and you use the coupon code MIRACLES, ACP is giving 20% off if you buy less than 9 books and 50% off if you buy 10. So it's a really good time if you're like, that book and that book and that book. It's like, this is a place where you can get them all for half off. So it's pretty freaking cool. Awesome. Our next guest is Simone. So can we add Simone? There's Simone.
Yay!
Hello. How are you?
Hello, Miss Julia. I'm good.
Oh, so
Early.
it is early. Thanks for joining us early.
You're welcome.
Susanna,
It's dark outside.
oh God, thank you so much. Susanna was like our first person and it was like super late for her. And so I put her
Right.
at the beginning and then put you at the end. So thanks for joining us live.
You're welcome. But can I say thank you to you, Julia? Have you just been going back to back here?
Yeah,
You're amazing. You're amazing.
I love these
You need
books.
me to entertain the crowd while you go pee or something?
That's what I was saying to Laura. I was like, I better not have to pee for the next few hours, but I don't. So good. That's awesome. So today we're going to talk about this freaking awesome guide to a different reality,
Yes.
getting out of debt joyfully. And basically, I was reading the part about Chris. I hadn't read the interviews at the back of the book until a few days ago. And that story, Simone, in this book about how fast Chris changed his financial reality, like shook me to my core.
I know. It's so if anyone doesn't know, so the whole book, right, is filled with tools, processes, home play. Like the reason why I called it joyfully is getting out of debt joyfully is because it should be a joy. And most people don't look at getting out of debt as something that can be joyful. They look at it as, oh my God, this is such a chore. Or the really common thing I find is they don't want to create money because they go, oh, well, it just goes to paying off my debt. You still have to live. And I talk about that in this book, about still living whilst creating money. And so what I did was at the end of the book, I interviewed a few people, including Gary, Dain, Brendan Watt, Chichester and Steve Bowman, and Christopher Hughes, because I think a lot of people meet those people or they see them and they go, oh, they've always had money, including myself. And it's like, no, it's a hard no. We haven't. And it's like, we haven't always had money. And so, yeah, I'm interested to know what your favorite part is that Chris talks about, because I remember mine in the interview. Do you remember or no?
I think I know yours. Is yours about wind pie?
No, it's not about Windy Pie, but that's more like God, no kid should have to live like that. So what Chris used to ask his mother and say, what's for dinner? And she'd say Windy Pie, which basically meant nothing. And then the next day it'd be like, what's for dinner? And it's like Windy Pie, we still have leftovers. And that's we'd have. You know, Chris, a lot of Chris's stories too can almost turn into, you're like, are you kidding me? Like no child should be treated like that. The amount of food, etc., that he was not given. And his mother would do things like, you know, cook for other people on Christmas Day and take the food to somebody else on Christmas Day and leave him at home on his own as a kid. One of my favorite stories is and actually, guys, you need to look at this too. There was an abuse class that I think is on the access.me app. I know Dain just mentioned it, and I'm going to mention it again too, because it is insanely so good, the access.me app.
It's crazy.
I think some of the abuse classes are on there, and most people look at abuse and go, oh, physical, sexual, like this is all the abuse that we know of, that we hear about. But there are so many forms of abuse, including monetary. Like if you're a kid growing up and your parents were always saying, well, we don't have money because, you know, we had kids, or we could afford this, except we have to pay for your school fees or your new shoes, or, you know, whatever that is a form of abuse. So in truth, there was a lot of monetary abuse that went on for a lot of these people that I spoke about in the book. So if that went on for you, the monetary abuse, guess what? Breaking news, not your fault, okay? Not your fault. And everything that is times a godzillion, we destroy and uncreate it.
Yeah.
Right on to the bad. Pock and Pod, all 100 shorts, boys, proverbs, creations, spaces, and beyonds. You are a gift. And as soon as you chose to be born into this planet, you you were a gift and you still are a gift. So if your parents are not telling you you're a gift, I'm telling you today you are a gift, right? Start valuing you, which also means not being in debt. It means having way too much money and creating this flow of money around the planet so that we can create, generate, and have anything that we desire. So, little segue there. The part I love about Chris is he was there's so many aspects of this were so sweet because Brendan Watt, who I was in a relationship with for 8 years, it was his birthday and he loved cooking, right? Cooking was big thing. And Chris knew it. Chris also is a fabulous cook. And so he brought Brendan for his birthday with like the last money he could.
This was my favorite part. This was my favorite part. This is what I was going to say.
He brought him these pots, right? These, I don't know, these epic pots that you can cook stock in. Both of them make the most amazing stock that cooks for like days and everything. So he was driving up because he lived in Brisbane and he was driving up to see Brendan and his car ran out of petrol. But he didn't have any money to put gas in the car. So he literally left the car at the side of the road, took the pots and pans, and then left to come see us. So he was using like the last money he had to buy his friend something that he knew his friend would be so incredibly grateful for, but didn't have enough money to put gas in his car. And it's like that generosity of spirit is just one of the most beautiful things.
Whew, I'm gonna cry. It's like that was an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And then he said that he was driving a car that was such a wreck that when he ran out of gas, he just like abandoned the car.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing left to that car. And then he used the change that was sitting in the car to take a train that got him about 30 minutes from his home. And then he's like, what am I going to do now? I'm still 30 minutes from home. And so he called some friends to see who could drive him home. And it's like, and then it skips ahead and he starts talking about how he basically started actually using the 10% tool, which is an amazing tool that you talk about in this book. I mean, this book is just such a deep dive guide with like these deep tools that just, if you like, you go through as you go through the book, it just transforms you financially. And so he started using one of these tools, the 10% account, which is where you take 10% of everything that you make and you put it aside basically as an honoring of you, and you don't spend it no matter what. And he started doing that. And sometimes he would spend it. So he started tricking himself by putting the 10% into silver or gold or something like that. And then like 4 years after that, he added it up in his house. 4 years after he abandoned his car the day that he bought Brendan those pots, he looked around his house and there was $150,000 worth of silver in his house because he just changed what he was choosing. And I like lost it when I read that. I was like, that story is just, I don't know. And Chris is so elegant. Chris is such a magical guy. You know, he's got such a sense of humor. He's such a worldly, international, debonair is not quite something like that. You know, he's this really elegant, beautiful man. And to think that he came from such a different upbringing and created himself into who he is using these tools, I was just like, I just had to sit there and be like, this is one of the most amazing transformation stories I have ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think I'm amazing transformational story too. But it's true. So people always look at me and think that I've always had money. I haven't. I haven't. And I'm going to actually mention the access.me app again. And if you've been listening to this whole thing, I think you've heard it a few times. But it's so brilliant. And there's one class in there. It's literally called the money class. Like, I think we used to just keep the titles of classes very simple. And it was in Gold Coast, Australia. And I don't remember the exact year, but it must have been around 2004, I'm guessing. and it's called the Money Class. And that is the class. I organized that class. I put together these, 50, we had 55 people in the room. Gary and Dain came out. Dain was doing the recording. Gary was facilitating the class. And I think it was 250 Australian dollars for 2 days with Gary. And that class is the class that created the book, Money's Not the Problem, You Are. And that is the class that I sat in there and I listened to Gary, and I in my head, I could hear myself going, oh, here we go again, these money tools, these 10%, because I hadn't started it. And every other tool I was using of Access Consciousness was changing my life. Like when I found Access, I was just almost ran to it because I was like, holy shit, this is everything that I've been looking for. Like, and I was trying to find it in drugs or, in other things, in people, in whatever. And then finally, when I came across Access, I was like, this is my reality. This is what I've been looking for.
Yes.
I'll have more, please. So I didn't wait. I was just like, within 6 months, I found myself in Houston, Texas at a facilitators class. I was just like, yes, 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 yes. And I was using the tools. And I was so broke and I had no money. And I organized this, like coordinated the whole money class and was sitting there. And in my head, I can hear this thing going, here we go, 10% tool. Because I hated that tool. I thought that was the most dumbest tool I've ever heard. A lot of the money tools I did. I thought, this is insane. Why would I choose this tool? And I sat in that class and I went, oh, everything that I am currently choosing with money isn't working. Like I knew I was in debt and I had no idea how much I was in debt. I just knew I never had an overflow. I was always struggling every week to get my rent, had to hustle. It was like all these different things. Like I never had a peace with money ever. Although I made money, I just like, you wouldn't have been able to look at me and go, ooh, look how in debt she is. Look how poor she is. I acted like I had money and I would choose things, but I was spending way too much money compared to what I was earning, that old thing. And I'm in the class and I went, holy shit, what would happen if I actually started using these tools? So I think this is the hilarious part, is I chose 3 tools and I went, okay, I'm going to choose 3 tools. And I set myself a date of 3 months. And I said, I'm going to use these tools diligently for 3 months. I'm going to see if something changes, if something different shows up. So I did. I had one of those old school calendars and I marked it on my wall at 3 months to have a look at where I was at with my financial reality in 3 months. And I realized after that 3 months, I was like, wow, I didn't have like this massive surplus of money. But what I noticed was I wasn't anxious about it. And I had more of a sense of peace. And I had more of a sense of, oh, way more is possible than what I thought was possible. And the 10% tool was one of the tools that I started using and for me, Julia, when I worked out how much money I owed, when I finally did, I was 187,000 Australian dollars in debt. And I owed money to friends, to institutions, to suppliers, like, very diverse range of people I owed money to. And I rang every single one of those people and I said, hey, I'm aware that I owe you X amount of money, including credit card companies. And I went, I don't have it. I said, but I'm aware of it and I'm going to do my absolute best to pay you back. And that is a tool that I would highly recommend. Every single one of those people, institutions, etc., we're so grateful because what we tend to do when we owe money is we do this thing of, oh my God, don't look at me, or hiding. It's like, oh my God, they're here. And we hide, or we don't answer our phone. And we create an energy that is not conducive to creating a flow. So as soon as I rang everybody, I could literally perceive the energy of people almost like desiring for me to make more money. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like there was one person I owed $15,000 to, and I said, look, I can pay you $50 a month. That's all I can commit to, but I'll do my best to pay it off as soon as possible. And the way he was being with me was such a contribution to me actually creating something different and something greater. But that 10% account, guys, if you've done it and you've spent it, start it again. Don't judge yourself. If you've never done it, what if today was the day that you started it? Not tomorrow, okay? Not until you pay off those bills. Do it now. Because when I had that $187,000 in debt and I started my 10% account, I was like, are you kidding me? I'm going to put 10% away of everything I earn. That's just for me, that I can never spend. That is just honoring me. and I'm not paying anybody back, it made no sense to me. It wasn't quote unquote fair in my world. And yet it's not about fairness. It's about changing the energy. And as you mentioned, Julia, with Chris, it's making a different choice, and making that different choice will change your financial reality.
Totally. I was just looking up, I wanted to see if I could find the date of the money class you were talking about in Access Me. I can't, but it's, if you guys want to listen to it, it's, so Simone's talk, so this is the class that's based, that the book Money Isn't the Problem, You Are is based off of. And if you go into the playlist on Access Me, it's called Classes That Became Books. That class is in there because it became a book, and it's amazing. It's yeah. Anyways,
I just sent you the link to it just in case.
Oh,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, Money, Gold Coast, May. It says May, but I don't know what.
Yeah, it doesn't say the year.
Yeah, what year? Yeah. But you can also hear me in there, and like I sound like such a rookie. And what I noticed is the frequency, like the vibration I have, is so different. It's and you can, because one of the awarenesses I came to, because a lot of the times it's the insane stuff that locks us up, right? It's like if we could work everything out with our logical mind, we'd have everything we ever desired. But we have these insane points of view that create the limitations and create the stop and create the no and, you know, the judgments and everything. And you can hear me in this class have the awareness that my father, who died about 12 years ago, had said, I will not die until I know all of my kids are financially stable. And you can hear me in that class have this awareness, and Gary like joking with me and hassling me about it. And I remember sitting in that class going, holy shit, I'm creating myself to be a financial mess so my beautiful, amazing Papa Bear can be alive. And then I went and spoke to Dad about it the following week. And, you know, so many different things started to change. So it's like, what insane point of view do you have around money that keeps you from having it? And everything at that is times a gazillion, we destroy and uncreate it.
Yeah.
Right and wrong, Pock and Pod, all 100, shorts, boys, provides, creations, bases, and beyonds.
I can hear those beautiful Australian birds in the background.
Yep, it's morning. The sun's coming up. They're like, morning.
Thank you so much for coming on so early.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, I love that part of, because you talk about that story and getting out of debt joyfully, about, you know, your points of view about, you know, with your dad, and we all have those in different ways. And I was telling Susanna, she was the first person that I interviewed today, about how I loved this musical called Tick Tick Boom, and it was all about starving artists in New York City. And I would just watch it, and I just love the energy. And then one day I was like, wait a minute. Why do I love starving artists so much? And it's like I realized that that's how I was creating myself. And then once I acknowledged it, I changed it. I could change it. And so it's really cool, just the way that you acknowledge where you were at with your dad. And you don't want your dad to die, but as soon as we acknowledge these things, we can change them. And we all have different versions of the same thing.
Yeah. And just to add on to that too, what you're talking about, it was like, that's a very big thing around the world, the starving artist, right? And the struggling artist. So it's a very familiar, acknowledged, recognized, almost, you know, adhered sort of energy. It's like, oh, you know, they're the starving artist, but they're going towards their art sort of thing. So it's got this justification to it. And the same thing with money. It's like a lot of people having no money, or here's a favorite. How many of you listening have just enough money to pay the bills? That is such a common theme. Just enough money to pay the bills, right? Like, what if you gave up having just enough money to pay the bills and you always had way too much money and never enough? And everything at that is times a gazillion, we destroy and create it. Right, wrong, good and bad, pod, all 100, shorts, boys, provides, creations, bases, and beyonds. So one of the things, and I know you've heard this story before, Julia, but this has really helped me. And can I just say, getting out of debt was one of the toughest things I ever chose. Okay. Yeah. It really was one of the toughest things. And when I chose this, and then I, worked at it, etc. And then finally one day I'm in my office and I was sitting there and I was looking at all my accounts and everything, my bills, all of that sort of stuff. And I realized I was no longer in debt and I actually had money. And I was so disappointed with how that was. Like, I was like, this is it. Like, this is what it, quote unquote, feels like to have money. And I was like, wow, there's not much excitement here. Like, literally, that's what went in my head. And I was like, there was not even anyone to tell, like that would be like, oh my God, Simone, that's amazing, or no one to celebrate that with, and not from people don't really give a shit, like,
Right.
And I was like, oh, and then I realized 2 weeks later, I found myself back in debt, and that's when I started asking myself, what do I love about creating debt? And I realized if I was in debt, then you could almost celebrate that with people you knew. Because everyone was like, yeah, geez, we're all having a money struggle, It's like there's this whole arena and there's this big pool of people, friends, family, neighbors, whatever, that are all swimming in the same thing. And we're like, yeah, we've got this commonality of purpose, right? To struggle with money.
Yep.
And I went, oh. So then I kept asking myself, what do I love about creating debt? What do I love about creating debt? And it definitely was this familiar energy, and everybody else was doing it, so I may as well do it as well. And I realized when you actually have money, it's a different world. It's almost like you grow up. What do you want to be when you're an adult? I'm going to have money. It's like, so because you've now got this, I don't know how to explain this, but it's sort of like you're no longer holding hands with everyone and singing Kumbaya and the Dios mío, I have no money. You're now just going, okay, I wake up and I have money. What am I choosing today? What am I creating today? What am I generating today? Like, what can I be in the world? And you're not looking for somebody else to align and agree with you about your money problems, because you no longer have a money problem. I'm not saying you no longer have a money problem, actually, because as you make more money, I remember Shannon O'Hara said one day, and I thought, God, that's a good way to put it. You have rich people's problems, because like I have a lot of investments now, and I have stuff going on with banks that I'm currently negotiating, etc. And it's like this week, it's taken a lot of time and energy to negotiate different things with banks and give them information. So it's you sort of jump up to a different scale. But what I'm going to say is, no matter where you are right now in regards to money and in regards to finances, what if you could have joy with it? If you have no money in your bank account, what if you never calibrated your success by the amount of money that you have in your bank account, whether it's $10, no money, or $1 million? It's you wake up and you choose whatever's going to make you happy, because money will show up when you choose whatever's going to make you happy. That's something I'm looking at big time at the moment. I mean, the name of my company is Whatever Makes You Happy. And I'm literally, as I'm choosing, I'm asking, will this make me happy? Will this create the future that I desire?
Yeah. Thanks for articulating that. I like the way that you articulated the difference between being in debt and then the energy of having money and just what that creates. That's cool. Yeah. I've never heard it.
There's people like my mother who, when my parents had enough money to buy a house, they bought a house and she was like, okay, that's it, done. And to her, like, my father was an entrepreneur of magnitude, but to her, now we have to be safe because we have a house, that's it. And it's like, what if there was never an end game? What if there was just so much money in the world that you could receive it and create the flow? Because people tend to do this thing of holding on, or like, say, someone like my mother, we've got a house, now we're safe, that's all we need. And it's like, well, how many of you have decided that if you desire more than a house, then it leads to greed? It's not. It's like, what else would you like to create and generate in the world? I know for myself, I love contributing to Alugar. Like, the fact that I'm the biggest investor in Alugar so far. And it's like, come play leapfrog with me, invest in Alugar. For me, investing my money in a place like Alugar matches the future that would make me happy and the future that I desire, which goes to that question of, if I choose this, will this create the future I desire? It's like, what if we lived from that and we had we keep blaming money for stuff. It's not money. It's like, come on, let's go. Like, let's fucking go as big and as great as we possibly can and exponentialize every friggin' choice. Like, there's so many things I would like to contribute to on this planet. A lot has to do with earth and animals, etc. I would like to have regenerative farming, like, everywhere across the globe. I have this thing of going, if we had 1 million backyard food forests, like, what would the world be like? It's like these different projects that I'd like to work on as well. Well, money is something that contributes and helps for you creating all of these different projects. So how many of you are choosing no money so you can maintain lazy? Oh, I don't have the money for it. And everything that is times a godzillion. Lazy motherfuckers. We destroy and uncreate it. Right, hungry and bad, pock and pot, all 100 shorts, boys, prophets, creations, bases, and beyond.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for coming on and talking about all this stuff. It's just like there's such a different reality with it, and like I love this book because it's intense to read too. Because like as you're reading it, you're changing all your points of view, and I just love it. It's such a guide,
Yeah, and it's for me. This book is. I mean, you can read it. It's not a long read. I mean, this one I just went to, page 41. Stop avoiding and refusing money. It's like, how many of you are avoiding and refusing money? Like, and I have a lot of stories in there that I'm hoping those stories can actually contribute to you. But then there's also questions in here and home play. Like, and one of the things, I mean, even I just went here, page 147. It says the tool is make a list of everything that you love doing, because most of you have this point of view that if you love doing it, it's useless and it's more like a hobby. What if you loved baking cakes, right? And it's like, so then you love baking cakes, write it down. What if you could make money from baking cakes? Like, you can create revenue streams from choosing things that you love to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, most people think they can only make money from doing the hard stuff. Like, that mentality of like, my dentist reception rang me the other day, and it was a Monday, and she asked me how I was, and I was like, oh, I said, I'm great. How are you? And she goes, oh, well, I suppose okay for a Monday. And I went, wow, I hadn't heard that type of point of view in ages. And I'm like, what if every day was greater than the last, and it didn't matter if it was Monday or Friday or Sunday? But that mentality of like, well, I'm at work, so what do you expect? And I'm like, no, what if you were at work and it's like, yes, I get to be at work. How did I get so lucky? Like Julia hanging on by a thread here going, yes, I get to do this book club for hours on end.
Oh my God, that's so awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
No,
Change your point of view, basically. Change your point of view. Julia started with that with the story with Chris. If you change your point of view, you can have, be, create, generate, have anything you desire.
It's so fast. That just, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and be out of control.
Yep. And be out of control. Awesome. Oh, well, thank you for coming on and waking up with the birds with us. And just for like, God, you're just creating something so different. And just thanks for everything that you're teaching everybody about consciousness and business and money. And what a gift.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything that you're being too, Julia.
Thanks, Simone.
And Access Consciousness Publishing, ACP for short, because we shorten everything.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Bye, Simone. Bye. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so inspiring and just amazing, like what we can change and what we can create in such a short amount of time with these tools. And so now next we have some videos by Access Consciousness authors. We looked at the energy and had a shorter day than last year, but we also wanted to include the authors, some of the other authors. So now we are going to watch some inspiration from the Access Consciousness publishing authors, and them talking about their books, miracles, and all the different ways we can change and create our life. So here we go.
What is your book inviting people to? My book is inviting people to a different possibility with relationships. And the way that this book was written, it was kind of real time in the tools that we were using, Simone Milasas and myself, in our relationship. And one of the things that allowed it to work was we really used these tools. Like we had Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness. We would be calling him all the time. What do I do with this? What do I do with this? How do I handle this? You know, and he would tell us, and we would use these tools, and our relationship just worked based on that. And you know, it was interesting when we were writing the book, after we'd finished, and we were like, what do we call this thing? And I sat there and pondered for a while, and I was like, relationship. Are you sure you want one? Because I know for a lot of us, there's so many things out there with relationship. And for a lot of us, we think, oh my God, I desperately need one. And I desperately need one that works this certain way. And we've got all of our own, you know, insanities or things that we bring into the relationship, rather than recognizing that if we were creative in it and actually allowed ourselves to be present and see what's true for you, what's true for the other person, and how do we create something greater together. What did you learn from writing your book? What did you learn from writing your book? Well, I think number one, first of all, is I learned that I could actually write a book, but also I really got a refreshing new look at the tools. You know, when you kind of live something and you're using these tools and you're going on about it and you're like, you know, things seem to be working or not working. And you don't really realize until you start writing it all down and really looking at it like that. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a really different way of looking at this. This is a different way than, you know, that I grew up with. I grew up with a lot of crazy stuff about relationships. So to see that you could use a tool and have something be different, or that you actually could have value, truly have value in a relationship, I thought that was really cool. So I learned a lot about me from writing the book. What 3 words best describe your book? I would have to say pragmatic, humorous, refreshing, and I'm going to add one more in there, unconventional. If you could ask your readers one question, what would it be? Well, a question I would ask is, what's your reality with relationships? And what's your reality with all of that stuff, so that you can get clear on, okay, if I was functioning as me, like truly as me, and having my point of view with this, what would that be? Not what have I learned, or not what is the other person, you know, doing that I'm triggered into reacting to and all that stuff. No, what's my reality here? And what's true for me with regards to this? Any thoughts on your book? Any miracles? Well, you know, one of the things that pops that was just funny. Simone and I did an audio book of this book, and there is a bloopers reel because I could not read this one section of the book. It was hilarious. I couldn't read it. I tried and tried and tried and tried and tried, and I could not read this section. And what that section was me telling this story about, you know, Simone would be saying, oh, you know what, I have a shower and I come up with 8,000 ideas and I'm so creative, and I wake up every day and I'm just creative and I'm creative and I'm creative. And I was, you know, I always found myself as not creative. And I'd be like, oh, what's wrong with me? You know? And so she said this thing about she'd get into the shower and, you know, have these ideas. And I'm like, holy shit, I can't even shower right, because I get into the shower and I clean myself. I don't come up with 8,000 ideas. What's wrong with me? And so there were things like that where it was just, that's a miracle, you know? I'm a clean boy. I got out of the shower clean, not with 8,000 ideas. I get ideas other ways. So anyway, I don't know if that's relevant to the question, but there you go. I think it's a miracle if you can create a relationship that actually works for you. Because there are billions and billions of relationships out there, but there is not you. There is not another one of you. And there is not another one of the persons that you're in relationship with. So what if you could create it each and every day as the miracle that it can be, as the miracle that you are. So I hope you enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed writing it, and how does it get any better than that?
Well, howdy, y'all. Rudrani Devi, the happiness lady. At least I got coined the happiness lady because this little yellow book right here called Choosing Happiness, an uncommon way to find joy in your life. It speaks other languages as well. It speaks Spanish. Actually, yeah, Portuguese. I don't remember which one's which, but it does. Also speaks Arabic, Chinese, Turkish, and German, I believe. It's in the works. So, what is my book inviting people to? Well, I'll tell you. It's very simple. I just plagiarized the book, The 10 Keys of Total Freedom. I'm going to be honest. But what I did is, this is what I noticed. I had a conversation with Gary Douglas, the founder, and basically said, you know, when people try to explain what access consciousness is, they don't make no sense at all. Everybody think they cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. They actually believe that, you know, they're part of this cult. Well, by definition, a cult is wherever two or more gathered. So sure, if you want to call it that, you can, but that's just silly. So I wanted to create a book that someone could say, you know, if their family member said, what the heck are you doing? You could go, here, you want to know more about what I'm into? Read this book. And they'll know quickly whether, you know, this speaks to them or not. Basically what I did is I took the 10 Keys of Total Freedom and based it around my own experiences, right? The wrong ways to use the tools. And should I say the right way when there is no right or wrong? So basically, that's the offering. It's inviting people to learn these tools. So, and what I learned actually from writing this book is how much these tools have guided me through my life. I mean, I used to be, and not that I don't slip into it occasional now, y'all, but I always had problems with this reality, fitting into it. And I made it so significant to be liked or to fit in. You know, you just can't fit a square peg in a round hole, y'all. You know, I am unabashedly me, and there's no better me than me, and there's no better you than you. And these tools showed me as I was writing the book that, oh my gosh, there are so many people that don't realize that they can actually choose to create their life. And how lucky am I that I stumbled over access consciousness, and namely Gary. Gary was in Nashville before they were in California and before they moved to Houston. So I learned that these tools really work if you're willing to work the tools and not be a tool, right? What 3 words would best describe this book? Well, it's an easy read. I don't know if that's a description or not, but you can get through this book in 90 minutes, right? So I guess I can include that one. Another one is, it's relatable. I wrote it in a manner, I guess I should be holding up the English one. I wrote it in a manner that anybody in any country can relate to. We all have families. We all get cranky pants, right? Sometimes people look at these tools and they're like, well, how do I actually do this thing? How do I actually pick in 10-second increments? And I give examples. So it utilizes these tools in a way where you're going to understand how you can use them for yourself. So I would say that's the second best thing about this book. Third, don't you just love this artwork? I don't know. Oh, the third thing, I actually have it on audio as well. So for those of you that are lazy and don't want to actually pick up a book and read it, you can have me in your ear. how does it get any better than that, right? And that way, if you're on your way to work or whatever it is, you could be cleaning your house. I listen to a lot of podcasts when I am cleaning my house. That's how I learn songs too. If I've got to do a gig, as probably some of you know, I am a singer-songwriter, entertainer. Perform with my band in Nashville. That's a little bit more about me. I really became more of an access consciousness facilitator during the lockdown. So anyway, so what question would I ask of you, the reader? I'd probably ask something along the lines of, did you know you could create your life and living? Did you have any idea that you could choose? Because choice does create. And if that's something that interests you, maybe this is a good book for you to share. And this is something that I like to recommend as well. Share it with your partner or your family, a family member that knows you're a little crazy, because maybe they're a little crazy too. Share bars with them and, be reading through the book, right? It's really a miracle this book even happened. I literally took a week off because people are like, how do you write, Rue? And, I had a writer's course as well through Access. But they're like, how did you write this book? And I said, well, I know that I get distracted very easily, and most humanoids do, right? So what I did is I got off my socials. I took my computer outside where I couldn't get the internet, left my phone in the house, and I sat out in the backyard. And I talked to the birds and the trees and all the nature. And I asked for their contributions. Because here's the thing about writing a book, y'all. If you want to write a book, it's already written. Listen to the whispers. Listen to the whispers, and you'll get that download. So I took that week off, and no joke, y'all, I wrote that book in 1 week. Put it aside, went back and reread it, and then wrote that last chapter to encapsulate. I'll get it out of my mouth and hair in a minute. But yeah. So this book is actually an invitation, inviting you to be more of you. And don't care what other people think of you. But if they're curious, maybe share with them. Gary says if you change one person's life, you've done your job. He did that with Dr. Dain, the co-founder of Access. And they both have lots of Access books, right? So maybe you could change someone's world by sharing this book with them. Why not, right? I love this little yellow happy book. And maybe listen to it on audio. I didn't do so bad after all. All right, my dears, enjoy. And International Book Day. Here we go now. Ciao, ciao. Happiness Lady signing off.
Hello, my name is Susanna Mittermaier, and I have so far written 5 books, and more are coming.
What is your book inviting people to?
What is my book inviting to? What are my books inviting to? Yes, since I've written a couple of books, all of them are invitation to a life that works for you. Like most of the times, people create a life that is not really theirs. They create a life that other people are happy with, that they think they should have, that looks good, that fulfills an image, but they seldom ask, what would I like? What works for me? What makes me happy? And creating clarity about that, and also the steps, the tools, the different perspectives, the space to actualize that with ease.
What did you learn from writing your books?
What did I learn from writing my books? Well, so much. First of all, I never thought that I ever would write books, because when I went in school, I was never really good at writing. I got a lot of like the teacher marked a lot of mistakes and the way I was writing, so I never considered myself as an author. What I had as a wish was to inspire people. And even if I wasn't considered as a good writer in school, I still had this lust for like writing, like putting down in written form what I have as my awareness, what's going on in my world, what I'm discovering, what I'm becoming aware of, like the things that inspire me. Like writing is for me a very special process to get more awareness, to have more ease, to be inspired myself. So writing for me is a very special process that even if like writing for me is a special process that is not about getting things right or being perfect, but about getting more awareness, being inspired myself, learning learning more for myself while I write, plus hopefully inspiring the world with that.
What 3 words best describe your book?
What 3 words best describe my books? Well, that's a difficult question. Well, exuberance, thriving, inspiration.
If you could ask your readers one question, what would it be?
If I could ask my readers one question, what would it be? What life would you like to create that you have never considered?
My name is Julie Tooten, and I am author of Beauty in the Breakup, 6 Steps for Moving Beyond Your Breakup and Creating Your Lighter and Brighter Future. It's actually not necessary to have a breakup or be breaking up. It's more about inviting you to not lose yourself in your relationships. I know for me, that was one of the things that I did. I would always be that people pleaser and trying to make sure everything was fine for everybody else. And in the process, lost a lot of that fulfillment of choosing things that light me up and that are joyful for me. And when we choose that, we invite other people to do the same. So my book is inviting you to really get clear on you, your choices, what lights you up, and what you'd like to create in your relationships. What did I learn from writing this book? I learned that you really can create beauty in any transition. It doesn't have to be hateful, hurtful, unkind to make changes. And using these tools, they are simple, they are practical, they are empowering. And even if you've never heard of Access Consciousness, you will be able to use the tools the way they are described in the book. The 3 words that best describe my book would be kindness, clarity, and empowering you. If I could ask my readers one question, it would be, what is it that you truly desire? If you were willing to ask for anything, and would you be willing to allow those things to show up in your life? This book has been miraculous for many people, including myself. After my 20-year marriage is when I wrote this book, and that ended 15 years ago. Since then, I've had a couple long-term relationships, and I've used the book to bring myself back to the clarity for me. Sometimes when you're going through the rough patches, you need that guidance, and the way the book is laid out, there are different steps. And so if all the past keeps flooding into your awareness and you can't seem to handle that or move away from it, the tools in step 2 will help you. And if you've lost your way, if you've lost your target, Step 3 is your navigation system for gaining clarity. So it's laid out really simply, and you can go forward and back. It's like a map to finding you and your joy. I know that there have been people who never heard of me, never heard of Access, and purchased the book in the bookstore. And I happened to come across them and they're like, oh my God, you're the one who wrote that book. And it changed my life. And then I gave it to my ex-husband, it changed his life. And we gave it to our daughter and it changed her life. And they were so grateful. I just love that. So what's possible with getting these tools out in the world in a greater way, where people who are going through the struggles of relationship stuff can have their own navigation system to work through and create beauty in the process.
Awesome. Well, it has been an amazing day. And I hope that you guys are as inspired by the Access Consciousness books as I am. I think I've read every book that Gary and Dain have ever written, and oh God, they're just so powerful and have so many tools. And I loved, oh God, getting into these weird conversations of this different reality. And each of these books has something in them that really don't exist anywhere else in Access. And so there's this amazing journey to possibilities. And I'm just so grateful that we have them. And I just invite you to this universe and to this amazing journey of what lies in these books. And I know my life has changed because of them. And I invite you to all the magic and the change that's possible. So I love you guys. And I can't wait to see you next year. Talk to you soon. Bye.